I to the power of 1225. So let's start with see what I is. I is equal to square root of -1. So I square would be I times I, which is equal to square root of -1 times square root of -1. Can somebody tell me what this I squared is equal to here? Grab a mic if you know.
-1.
-1, yeah. Okay, so we're going to remember I squared is equal to -1. Again, you can recall square root of A times square root of A is equal to A. That's how we get square root of -1 times square root of -1 is equal to -1. So I cubed would be equal to I squared times I. Now I squared, we already know, is equal to -1 times I, so I cubed is equal to -I. Now if I go take a look at I to the power of 4 is I squared times I squared, which is equal to -1 times -1, which is equal to +1. So when you have I to the power of higher power, we either have to reduce them to plus or -1 or plus or -I. That's what we want to see. So we're going to remember here that I to the power of 4 is equal to 1. If you remember this, then we can divide 4 into its exponents. Okay, if I divide 4 into 1225, okay, what do we get? We get 306 here, right? So 306.
I got 612 if you divide that into 124.
We're going to take a look at your method in a moment, but let's just take a look at how we're going to break it into I to the power of 4. So 306 times 4 would be 1224, so the remainder would be equal to 1. So what that means is I to the power of 1225 is the same as I to the power of 4 to the power of 306, and then we have a remainder here, which would be I to the power of 1, because 306 times 4 plus 1 give you this number here. So when I multiply 4 times 306 and add 1 to it, that's exactly what we have. This portion would be always equal to 1, because I to the power of 4 is equal to 1, 1 to the power of 306 is equal to 1. So this whole thing would be equal to I. So in this case, we have, if the remainder is 1, you see the whole thing would be equal to I. Now, let's go back to your suggestion. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I just made it easier pretty much like this. And I got 612 times I. So inside this is 1.
Okay.
So the 612, which just brings 1 times I. So which is just I pretty much.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're looking at how many I square you have within this term here. I'm looking at how many I4 I have, I to the power 4 I have.
Either way, you come up with the same answer. I mean,
right, but I to the power 4 is equal to plus 1, right? It's 1. You have to keep in mind that I to the power of 2 is equal to minus 1. So if the exponent turns out to be an odd number, so you have to make sure that you take that negative into account. See what I'm saying? That's fine what you're doing, but normally if you look at how many I to the power of 4 you have within this, and all those like I did here would be simply 1. Always would be plus 1. But there's nothing wrong with what you did here. If you get the same answer, that's fine. But generally, if you're looking at simplifying I to the power of higher power, we can look at how many I to the power of 4 you have within that. So let me change this very quickly. If I change this to I to the power of 1,220, let's say 6. Okay, let's see what happens here. If I do the same thing, if I divide 4 into 1226, then in this case, what would be the remainder? The remainder would be equal to 2 now, right? So again, I can write this as I to the power of 4 to the power of 306 times I to the power of 2. Again, this would be always equal to 1 because I to the power of 4 is equal to 1. 1 to the power of any number is equal to 1, so this still is 1. So the whole thing would be equal to I squared, which I squared we know is equal to minus 1. So if the remainder turns out to be 2, the whole thing would be equal to I squared, and then you would get negative 1. If you do the same thing and the remainder turns out to be 3, then we're looking at this one, right? So the whole thing would be equal to I to the power of 3, which is negative I. So if you have a higher exponent here and you want to simplify this, so you would have to you can divide 4 into that exponent and see how many I to the power of 4 you have within that exponent, and all those would be equal to 1, and the remainder would tell you how would you simplify that.